Pittsburgh Steeler fans, welcome to this week's episode of Steelers Touch Down Under. I'm Matty Peverell, joined as always by my co-host Marky D, Marky Davison. Mark, how's it going?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty well. Welcome to Steelers Touch Down Under, your one-stop shop for Aussie NFL Steeler news. Was that good?
It was all right. It's good.
Did I pass?
Yeah, you passed. You passed. And J Devil's first in, as always, into the live chat. So, Marky D, interesting week for Steelers. We're getting more and more, videos and cut clips and images out of Steelers, all the off-season workouts and mini camps and all these sorts of things. Is there anything that stood out to you from this week?
I wanted to talk about those helmets. And I know you have a bit of a I think you'll know you have an opinion on this, because to me it's kind of funny. Not the fact of I'm not taking away the health safety of concussions. I appreciate that, but I don't understand why they need to wear a Guardian helmet and then another helmet. Like, why do you need to wear two helmets? Why not just wear the Guardian helmet if you want to have safety?
Yeah, I don't really get it, to be honest. Don't wear the helmet at all. I mean, the helmet in the NFL does nothing for concussions. The headgear in rugby, which is made out of the same material that you're seeing these Guardian helmets made out of the side of, it's actually been proven to increase concussion rate, because what a lot of people don't realize is that the way your neck is actually structured, the muscles in your neck and the tendons are there and designed to absorb impact. That's why most people's spine has some sort of curvature to it naturally, right? Like, it's there to absorb impact. So you're kind of I'm trying to think of a good analogy on this. I don't understand why you're putting a helmet on a helmet to try and prevent the very thing that those things don't do. And maybe it's because you and I come from a country where, physical contact, football or rugby is, has no helmets at all. But there's a lot less concussions. So I just think it's just silly. It does look silly. It's, theoretically silly. Yes, it helps helmet to helmet hit and buffers that, but just don't wear them. I know that, and the problem is I know that they do have to wear them because you want players to practice feeling what it's like with the helmet on. Guys that have the green dot, the quarterback, with the mic, the microphone in it. You need to do all those things. But I mean, it comes back to something that I personally think the NFL at some point needs to move away from the helmets altogether. But that's heresy to most people that have grown up with the game. So it is what it is.
Well, it is funny. I think with the helmet discussion is, I think it's needed for the trench work, O-line versus D-line, where they, are
Why?
rams.
Why?
Because they're essentially like the ram, like the animal. They smash into each other so fast.
But in a rugby scrum, you don't have a helmet.
Yeah, but if you're coming off the line like a D-line or...
Do you know how much pressure, the pressure, the weight that goes through a prop in rugby at the front of the scrum is way more than what these one-on-one offensive linemen are doing.
Yeah, but they're not overly taught that way like rugby. But I just find it.
I know. I'm just saying. I don't. Yeah.
Why do they wear these Guardian helmets when they're not even also really hitting that hard in practice? I don't know. I understand what they're trying to do, but I think there needs to be a bit more research or discussion around it, because there could be a possibility that they never wear the helmet. But I think that's funny because the NFL is filmed such a way that it makes a player look, cool.
Yeah, no, it does. You're right. It makes them look like a transformer or bigger than life kind of sort of.
Yeah, bigger than
it's part of the image.
So, and there are probably a lot of gridiron coaches out there and stuff like that would say, well, no, we need it for this certain scenario, or if he's going up for a ball and comes down and lands on his head. So it's interesting, but I just found it a little bit funny. But I just found it funny that you're going to wear the Guardian one over the other helmet, and then you're not even going to really hit each other in minicamp or as hard.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what we're talking about there. It's simulating having the helmet on and all the rest of it. I think that's really, maybe that's what it's sort of about. But I don't know. I think theoretically and philosophically, they're silly. I think they look silly. I think the players think they look silly. But hey, you know what? It's all part of this. We talk about it a lot. It's part of the NFL finding a way to stay relevant in the media, even in the most, even in a quiet week in the offseason for one team. This puts them front and center of fans' minds. And you and I are talking about it, on the other side of the world.
Well, I'll talk about it any day. That's why I like doing this stuff, because people actually listen. No one listens to me in real life. This is great.
Anyway, an interesting comment in the live chat, which we're not going to get into there. But so on today's show, Mark and I are going to look at the AFC North, because everything's been quite Steelers focused. We're going to look at the Steelers as well. But Mark and I are going to basically go through the AFC North to rank the teams in terms. We're going to give them a rating out of 50 based on 5 criteria: their coach, the offense, the defense, the draft, and their star players. So, Mark, I think the easiest place to kick off, this is the Steelers podcast, is the Pittsburgh Steelers. So out of 10, what rating would you give Coach Mike Tomlin?
You know what? There's been a lot of hate around Coach Tomlin and, the recent PFF discussions and stuff like that. I'm telling you, I'm all down, man. I'm giving him 10. I'm so done with these Tomlin haters, mate. I am that done. You are looking at a future Hall of Fame coach with Coach Tomlin, and he's a winner, and you need to deal with it. If you don't agree with Coach Tomlin, you just need to deal with it and move on. So I'm giving him a 10 because he will be in the Hall of Fame. That's it. You listen to his speech the other day. He's a player's coach. People love him, except Steelers fans. Everyone loves him except Steelers fans. It's crazy.
Okay, I'm giving him a 9, right? And I wouldn't mind giving him an 8.5, but I'll give him a 9, just because this team's never had a losing season. I think the reason I'm not giving him a 10 is I still think we haven't won a playoff game in 5 years. I still think there's Super Bowls in him. I want to see that happen. I don't want to give him a 10 now because I think he can still.
That's fair enough.
Better.
I'm just making mine 10 just because for people to finally realize.
All right, one change. I'm going 8.5.
Just deal with it. He's a winner. Deal with it. Move on. Like we've heard you say, fire Tomlin a million times.
Oh, I'm not falling the fire Tomlin.
Get over it. Move on.
Okay.
Right.
How about the offense?
Well, this is a good one because we have a new offense. So out of 10, I'm going to say 7, and that's because of Najee. That's because of Najee. I think we got better on the offensive line. I think we got better by Ben leaving and Trubisky. I think Trubisky will start. I think 7 is a good right now. 7 is a good number.
Yeah, see, I think this team, you could look at it in some ways. I think it's got a high of 8.5 contextualized across the NFL, but I think right now it's a 6.5. So I'm going to undercut you.
Also, do I have to write these down as well, or you just write?
No, I've got them all down for us. I have them all down for us. So what about the defense?
Oh, mate, 10. Wait, should I be? I do sound a lot biased, and I don't even care. 10. This defense is amazing.
Defense 10? Are you kidding? With no lockdown corner?
No, mate, I don't care. You could put you and I back there.
A middle one.
If TJ will win us games by ourselves. Alex Highsmith looked unbelievable.
But we'll get there with the star players and the difference makers. So think about the defense overall. There's like 20+ defensive players. Sure you want to go with
all right, then 9. You put me down 1 point. But still, this defense is unbelievable.
I've got a 7.5. You got
really?
2 left. Yeah, man. All right. How about the draft?
Ooh, okay. Let's go with. Let's go with 7 because that kind of matches the offense. What we did with the offense, right? Bringing in Pickett and Pickens and Austin and those guys. So I would go 7 for the draft. I thought it was overall a good draft.
I'm going to go 7.5. I think they had a really good draft. The only person I think is going to be most likely to be a mistake is Mark Robinson. But anyway, he was a hard one to do a show on War Room this week. All right. Now, here's the category we're going to call this difference makers. It's effectively the star players. But if you think about the top 5 players on each team, so on Steelers, TJ Watt, Minka Fitzpatrick, Cameron Haywood, let's say Pat Freeman's tight end or Najee Harris or however you want to, James Daniels, however you want to state it. So yes, and Rhino, too, you're right in the live chat. It's hard to state, draft until a couple of years later, but we're going on potential. But yeah, for a difference maker perspective, how about that for the Steelers? What do you see that? Because I see that for me, that's a 10. That's a 10.
Well, I'm gonna have to say, so we're not including. Okay, I'm gonna say a 9 here. Then, if I gave the defense 9, I have to give these
top
guys
5 players. Top 5 players. So you're gonna go 9.
So 9, yeah, because you talk about TJ, Highsmith, Minka, all those dudes, and then I go on the offense too, Muth and Najee. Like these guys can win games by themselves, And when I say that, I mean like make key plays. TJ looks outstanding this year in minicamp. He's not done. So I think I think overall we have a good team. And yes, I'm completely biased, but I don't care. It's off season, and I just want to go into hype it up so much. If we go into the Bengals and we beat them, I know we'll talk about that in the coming weeks, but that would be amazing. To yet again be pushed down so far and we go and beat them. Can happen.
So it's interesting. You, despite the strong start that you had with giving out ratings, you gave the Steelers overall a 41, and I gave the Steelers a 40.
It's all right. It's not bad. There's improvement there, but that's why I think honestly the offseason has taken us around that B plus or 40 mark, right? I really do. I think we got better in the offseason, and the Steelers have a good chance this year to compete, and they will compete.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's move on to the basket case of the NFL right
Oh, boy.
now. The Cleveland Browns, right? Now, let's be contextual because there's some people, you might not be fully aware of. I mean, everyone's got to be aware of Deshaun Watson and Myles Garrett's situation. Some of their top players, and Jack Conklin and John Johnson and Joel Bitonio, and they've got Kareem Hunt there, so they do like people that looking up the felony list. Jedrick Reels, Nick Chubb, Denzel Ward, Amari Cooper. They got Jacoby Brissett. I didn't realize that. Jadeveon Clowney's in there as well. From that perspective, they had a decent. I think most people will suggest that they had a fairly decent draft as well. But Mark, I mean, let's kick it off. What do you give the rating for the Browns for coach?
Well, for coaching, I have to say right now, because of the whole Deshaun Watson issue, and then depending however it goes, still bringing that guy in is turned this, what you said, a basket case for the Browns. So I'm going to have to give them like a 5. Just because he's part of the whole organization and he would have had a say to bring this in. And this is a really
Kevin Stefanski, a 5. Wow.
Well, look what's happening. They don't know who their quarterback is. They've essentially brought in a quarterback with Watson who don't know who's going to play, and they don't know if they're going to play Baker. Come on, man. That's a big red flag. People think that we haven't got a quarterback. At least we have 2 options. They have 2 options that probably can't play. Because I don't think Baker will play for them. I think Baker's gone.
Yeah, but that's not on Kevin Stefanski.
He's part of the
you got to think of it as well as how would Kevin Stefanski go with, let's say, the Steelers players? You got to separate the coach.
But he's still part of the organization that makes the decisions and in the meeting rooms and gets things done, right? So I'm going to put on him. Because it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard for him to organize his team. Like the Cleveland Super Bowl Browns were thinking, "Oh, we're going to go win Super Bowl," and then these things happen. It's a real tough situation. Tough for the NFL and tough for the Browns right now with Watson, what he's going through. He may be charged. He may miss time,
and they essentially Stefanski though.
I don't. You know what? People would still put on Tomlin. They would still put on.
Correct, but do you want to lower yourself to that standard?
I'm just saying what it is. They'll put it on Tom 100%. So right. when push him to shove at the first few games, who's going to wear the blame? The coach. You know what I'm saying?
Ali comes up in the live chat and says, "We're witnessing the beginning of the 30 for 30 Josh Jobs Hall of Fame story, not the demise."
That would be great. I used to like Jobs. That'd be fantastic. But that's what I'm saying. They haven't got a quarterback, and people say the Steelers haven't got a quarterback. The Browns are in big trouble. So
okay, I'm going to give them a 6.5. Then I'm going to give them a 6. Give them a 6 because I think Stefanski can coach. All right. Well, I think you've tipped off your hat about the offense. What rating are you giving the offense?
Well, I have to go very similar. I'll probably give a 6 because I do like Nick Chubb in the running game and some of their players like that. But this whole thing with Watson is overshadowed the Browns, and you don't know who the quarterback is. And we are still 3 going to training camp. and Baker didn't show up. So what offense do they have? It's a quarterback-driven league. I'll go 6.
I'm going 4.5.
Why is that?
The only points I'm giving to them are running back position. They have no quarterback right now, as you rightly said. They're wide receivers. They went out and
That's
got,
true.
I think Bell from Purdue could be an interesting guy as a draft pick, but that's more for the draft side of things. They went out and got Amari Cooper, who I think's past his best, and he's not going to do anything with no quarterback. So that's dumb. I also think, from a tight end perspective, they've overpaid. The money they're spending on David Njoku is just absolutely like I think Ryan said they should win and Ryan O'Toole in the live chat said they should win the Darwin Award for this offseason. I mean, it's one thing to have the Watson fiasco, but to back that up with the fiasco that is David Njoku's contract, I mean,
the Browns are favorite to win the division. Browns are favorite to win the division right now in the Australian gambling markets. I don't know how.
All right, after this, I'm gonna put $1,000 against that. All right, how about their defense?
Defensively, well, who are the standout players? You got like Myles Garrett. I guess he's up there, and they keep comparing
Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward, John Johnson's a good safety in this league.
I like their cornerback.
Greg Newsom's I think is a cornerback that if they give him a chance to develop. Grant Delpit, when he's on the field, can do stuff. Anthony Walker Jr. is underrated at middle linebacker.
I'll give them 6. I'll give them 6 because I think they got a good pass rush, but it's they always compare Myles Garrett to TJ Watt, right? And TJ Watt's like times 10. But I do like their secondary and their cornerbacks as well. I think Ward's a good player.
I'll give him a 6.5. Yeah. And plus they've got JOK as well, and he was starting to come on before his injury last year too. So we'll give him that one.
All right. What's the next category? Is it the draft? Is it? Here's the hard part, though. I don't really watch the Brown stuff. I'm not even sure. You know a lot more than I do with the draft.
Yeah. So can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, you're here. Yeah.
I just muted me. I hate streaming. Probably get kicked off now. The AI will kick me out. In these days. It's really weird. I was just like, I'm on mute. I didn't even do anything. So yeah, on the draft side of things, look, the Cleveland Browns draft, I'll give some of their rookies right now. Sean Jolly, cornerback out of Appalachian State. They have David Bell there, as I mentioned earlier, from Purdue. They've got a couple of they didn't really get any massive names.
That's what I was going to say. There's no names that I can see, and
this name is Purdue, really.
Right. I'm going to give it 5 because I don't see any names that I know that I even researched. And I didn't really watch the draft too much. So I don't see any names. So
I'm giving them a 5. I'm giving them a 5.5 because, we do talk about draft picks unproven. Oh, they've got Martin Emerson as well, the cornerback out of Mississippi State. But again, it's not like, oh my God. I'm a 5.5 because I think they're the worst draft class of all the AFC North. So they don't deserve to win any points there. All right. Well, how about the difference makers and the stars? Because right now they've got a guy making a difference. It's just not on the field.
Yeah, let's give him all the money and then everything else is happening. Difference maker. The one player I do like, which was a Steeler, is probably Nick Chubb. I think he's a fantastic running back, so I think he's a difference maker. That's one. Like you said, Amari Cooper receiver, not too sure. And Njoku maybe, but on the defense, I don't know with this team. I'm going to say 5 just to be mediocre because I do like Nick Chubb. I think he's a great running back and he can change the game. Right? And if you have a good offensive line and up forward push, then for sure. But other than that, there's just there's so much controversy going around this team. It's hard to focus on football, and that is a bad thing during the offseason.
Yeah, I think I'm in the 6 because there's like Myles Garrett. You've got guys like Denzel Ward. I think Greg Newsom's going to be a good player in this league. But it's a reluctant one,
Go Browns. They're in trouble, man. They're in some big trouble, I think. They got to sort some things out over the next.
Did you give them a 5? You gave them a 5.
Yeah, 5 will do.
All right. So I overall have them at a 27.5. I love bagging out the Browns. No, less than that. Yeah, no, 27.5. I'm right. And you have them at 26.5.
And that's about right, I would say, in the off season with what is happening right now. They're not focusing on the actual game or football. We're focused on everything that is around it, and there could be a possibility that Watson may be suspended for a long time.
Mate, he's
we'll,
not playing this year. Come on.
Well, there you go. That's the problem where they're at under half. Like we're not focusing on the Cleveland Browns football.
That's it. All right. So let's go to the Cincinnati Bengals right now. Mark.
I'll be easy. I'll be honest. I'll be honest.
All right. Okay. Good. I mean, like a fair play.
Well, not my real honesty, but yeah, you know what I'm saying. I'll be like football honest.
Some of their top players are Trey Hendrickson, DJ Rito, who's a good signing for them, Jesse Bates, Joe Mixon, Tyler Boyd, Joey Burrow, Jamar Chase, obviously, Awuzie, Jonah Williams, Mike Hilton, Hayden Hurst, Jermaine Pratt. I mean, T. Higgins is a great player for them. They drafted Daxton Hill. Trey Flowers is in there as well. And I've got Joseph Osai, who's the next Longhorns player. Looked good in preseason, then got injured. So it was unfortunate. I think he got injured sacking Tom Brady. I think it was off the top of my head. But there's the Cincinnati Bengals there from a overall roster perspective, and we'll talk more about the draft guys when we get to the draft sort of section. What do you give? That's some of their star players, but what do you give the Cincinnati Bengals in terms of their coach, Zach Taylor? Because
I'd have to
he's
get
had a pretty good start.
I tell you, he's doing some good things in Bengal land. I have to give him about probably an 8. I give him an 8 because he
exactly
made
what I gave him.
He made it through the playoffs, right? And he got him to the AFC Championship game. Yes, they lost the Super Bowl, but he's turned this organization around. As much as we like to, discourage that, but he has. He's done some really good things for this Bengal team. He has given hope again to Cincinnati. So, and he has a young roster as well, young, talented roster. So I'd have to give him an 8. And also, Pro Football Focus gave him like 25 or something. Like, they're joking. The guy just made it to a Super Bowl. So you have to give him, props to that. Yes, they lost it, and I'm so thankful they did. They're 0-3, but he's a good coach, man.
I gave him a 7.5 because Mike Tomlin's at 8.5, and I'm knocking off half a point for 2 Super Bowls or 1 Super Bowl and two Super Bowls, but like one win in the Super Bowl. All right, how about the offense for the Bengals?
Pretty good. It's not. You already know it's pretty good. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. Who's the other receiver they got? Tyler Boyd. 3 great receivers. Like they're
7th out of 32 for points last year.
They're probably like the top 3 receivers in the NFL. Like they're pretty high up there. Jamar Chase second year. I'd have to give them almost like a 9. I can't give them a 10. Wouldn't I give them a 10?
Wow.
I'll give them a 9. The offensive line looks pretty stacked, and I like Joe Burrow. He's just killed it too, and also young Joe Mixon. I think they have they're going to be hard to stop. They're a pretty solid team when you think about it. And like I said, with a young head coach, I think the thing is Jamar Chase in second year. And like you said, we haven't got a lockdown corner, so that will be troublesome. So it's going to be hard for the Steelers to stop these guys, but they're a good side. As much as I hate to say it.
Yeah, I think they're a 9 as well. I think that's a fair. I would want to give them a 9.5, but I think it's fair for us to go right. Well, we got to see how this O-line gels for them. But I mean, the addition of La'el Collins, is massive for them on that offensive line. They draft. I'll get to the draft guys, but they drafted a player that I think is very helpful on the offensive line. So yeah, I'll give them a 9 as well. All right, how about we flip the script over to the defense? What are your thoughts there around the defense?
Defense is like their front line is good too. I like my guy, Mike Hilton. I like their secondary, Bates and Bell. Even Eli Apple. What's his name? I can't remember. Awuzie, was it? Awuzie. He's cool. Man, I have to give them a 9 as well. I think they got a good defense. They're a good team. Like they're not a bad team. They're kind of like I think we want the Steelers to be. Like so young, fired up, and ready to play, and they have this new life about them. But that's what's going to be even better when we go and beat them.
And look, someone in live chat talks about wanting to talk about the Steelers. we are talking about the Steelers in a roundabout way. We'll be back there. We're already almost through the third or fourth teams, and one of the teams was the Steelers, so we'll get back there.
Well, it's all impactful because we verse these teams. You think about it, it's 6 games a year. That's 6 out of 17. That's quite a lot of chunk of football that we need to face these teams. And the Steelers went out and beat the Ravens twice and Browns twice, and we got swept. We went 4-2.
Also,
that's not bad.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I'm not going to be an idiot like Andrew Filipponi and like come out and say Kenny Pickett is the best player ever off a few images. Like, I'm sorry, I'm just not going to do that. I care about what happens in the NFL field, like with proper play. But yeah, on the defensive side, it's hard. I thought that defense overplayed last year, to be honest. But then they had, Joseph Asai out, who I thought was going to make a real impact for them. They went and drafted Daxton Hill, who basically means that they can play a left and right safety instead of having to do strong and free safety if they want to. Cam Taylor-Britt is a guy they drafted, and I'll get to that in the draft part, but he is a brutal hitter at the cornerback position. Like, the defense is technically better. I'm going to give them an 8 because I do think they've filled some needs there, but I am doing that with faith that a guy like Trey Hendrickson can continue to get to the quarterback because he had a terrific year last year. He was awesome.
They're a tough side, man. They're going to be hard to beat.
All right, so you had them at 8, didn't you?
I think so, 8 or 9. I can't remember.
Yeah. 9. You had them at 9. That's right. All right. How about the draft class?
Well,
now,
not my strongest suits. You might have to walk me through this one because I didn't really watch too much. The only guy I know was Daxton Hill because a few of the BTSC guys talked about him at safety. So that may help. But other than that, I don't really know who they brought in.
Yeah, so, I mean, he's probably the biggest guy, Daxton Hill in terms of, the pick there taken first. Obviously he was their first round draft pick. Otherwise, they got guys, I think, as I say, Cam Taylor-Britt's probably the biggest one to really note from that perspective. I mean, Zachary Carter, the defensive end that they got in the 3rd round out of Florida, I think he's a guy that's got to develop, but he's someone that you're looking for in a few years on. Tyson Anderson in the 5th round is an interesting sort of safety style player out of Toledo. So it'll be interesting to see what he can bring to them as well. But other guys, are they brought in a lot of, undrafted, free agents as well. So there are definitely guys that could appear for them. But I think they've got a young enough roster that, like, they're the sort of team that can take flyers on more than half the picks. And they really just need to pull out 1 or 2 really good players. And I think they're going to get that in Daxton Hill and Cam Taylor-Britt.
Well, in saying that, so they improved the secondary. So I would give them a 6 just because, but my number is skewed because I don't really know too much about the draft. So I'll give them a 6 for this. That can be a tiny cheap shot at them, but if they if they improve the secondary, it is a scary. Like I said it last year, young and just crazy team. They're fed up and they want to win, but they didn't win Super Bowl. But we'll see. They've got to be a hard team to beat. Give them a 6 right now.
Yeah, awesome. I gave them a 6 as well because I think they've only got 2 players that I can see being decent starters in the NFL. And I think, if they had 3, then I'd be able to bump them up a bit more than that. So that's where I sat from that perspective. All right, well, how about difference makers on this team? Do you give a rating for their difference makers?
This has to be another high one, unfortunately. I think it has to be about maybe a 9. Just you look at what they did in the playoffs last year. Even through the adversity of like getting sacked 7 times, Joe Burrow played really well. Jamar Chase had an outstanding season, and their 2nd and 3rd receivers are great. Defensively, we talked about the secondary too. They're up there, and it's just some of their players are just, I don't know where it's come from, man. Maybe it is a coaching change, or it is from being bottom of the barrel for so many years, and they got all the picks, and they got, they can build around a young quarterback who's not getting paid right now. So I'm going to say 9. I think they're just a pretty outstanding team. And it hurts me to say that.
It hurts me to I agree. It hurts me to hear it. I can't quite give them a 10. Part of me says give them a 9.5. It's just that Trey Hendrickson, I need to see 1 more year of him doing that pass rush. And I think I need to see this is going to surprise some people, but a bit more for Jesse Bates. But I think Daxton Hill is going to allow him to do it. I'm going to go a 9, but it's hard for me to not give them a 10, to be honest.
But even their linebackers too. I think it's Jermaine Pratt. I watched a little bit last year. Like, he's pretty solid. Like, he's a pretty fired up linebacker. It just seems they're all like that. The attitude right now, they're all buying in. They're all ready to buy in. Where in years past, the Bengals were just a team we could knock over so easily, and we beat them 11 times in a row. Now it seems like they have a bit of physicality and something about them, because they went out and stomped the Steelers 27 to whatever we lost to. And I was like, oh my, and they beat us now 3 times in a row. So yeah, they I think if the points add up, they're probably leading, right? They'd be above the Steelers, I think.
So this is interesting. You gave them a 41 and I gave them a 41.5.
Right.
We had the Steelers I had them at 40 and you had them at 41. So you've given them equal footing to the Steelers. So this is good, because this, especially going into the Ravens team, this is quite interesting, because where we're rating these Steelers, I think, the hypothesis, I'm going to give you the spoiler. Mark and I, if you listen to us, you know that we're high on this Steelers team. I think the Steelers team probably will win the AFC North. And when you actually go through roster and some of these key things, even at a higher level, you start to see things even out. But I'm looking forward to getting to the Ravens here, who I think are
Ravens is an interesting one, because even where they ended last year, with 6 games losing in a row, and they ended 4th in the division, 8-9, and Lamar was hurt, and now they had I know we're getting to the draft, they had a pretty good draft.
Yeah,
and they're well coached, even though we all don't like Wayne Harbs. But this could be one of those seasons where it's a bounce back year. I don't know, because of how they fell down so far.
All right. Well, let's start off with Wayne Harbs. And I was thinking about this as I was planning out some of the idea of scoring this. Like, it sucks to have to rate Wayne Harbs. What rating are you going to give Wayne?
I'm just going to say this, right? So there was a lot of flack with, Mike Tomlin being one of the worst coaches, or still is, right? Where's the fire at Wayne Harbs crew? Because if you think about it, if he's ranked high,
4th downs, can you imagine if we were doing the stuff he was doing on 4th down? Can you imagine Tomlin would be like?
But he's ranked higher, and I think people appreciate him more as a coach, right? He's up there. I'm going to give him a 7, because I just don't like overall his attitude, because he is so smuggy. He goes out there and wins preseason games like they're real games. But the reality of the situation is too, the Steelers have beaten the Ravens 4 times in a row, right? How come Mike Tomlin doesn't get credit for that? If you want to talk about the Steelers, how come Mike Tomlin does not get credit for that? Beating one of the best coaches, that is John Harbaugh, right? And so I'm going to give him a 7, because they do have he's a well-coached, guy. But there could be, once he lost the quarterback, it was all over. And I called it last year. I told you they wouldn't win another game. They didn't win another game. I got 6 in a row.
Yeah, I think he's obviously had success. He's got a Super Bowl win, right? Now, I think sometimes it's overstated, when you've got a Super Bowl win, like, it completely changes, some people's, perception of a coach. But John Harbaugh has been pretty successful for the Ravens. I mean, 237 wins from 225 games. That's above 60% win rate. That's pretty good. Now, but it's not Mike Tomlin's 154 wins from 241 games for an overall, almost 65%, win rate. So I think this is the difference, right? They do have the one shared Super Bowl, but Mike Tomlin's got an AFC championship on there on top. Mike Tomlin's also, had some much harder years, I think, in terms of what's gone on in this roster and, all the rest of it. So, I mean, this is the difference. I think I got to give him a 7 as well, just on the basis of things. But,
I cut off
some
one
people
point.
might think Harbaugh's better coach. Yeah. I don't like him either. I think he's a Wayne.
That's why I cut off 1 point. He could be an 8, but I cut off 1 just to, check his ego. But honestly, why do you go out and try and win preseason games? They've won they've won 19 in a row. No one cares.
Yeah, but I also get the mentality of winning all the time. Like, and winning is contagious. And
true.
You and I hate that the Steelers never rack up a score. It's a little bit of the same.
And they do. And the Ravens are like, they will score until the clock's got at 0. So that's the way he coaches them. Maybe that's why he's successful, because he doesn't care. He's ruthless.
That's it. So looking at it from that perspective, then let's move on to the offense. What are you going to give this offense?
Well, you have to start with Lamar Jackson. I do like what he does, and we'll talk about him in the difference makers. Running game is quite good. I do like if they can run the ball, they are fantastic. Receiver wise, though, they don't have too many receivers, do they? But they have a tight end that he can throw to. So if Lamar can start to pass the ball and actually get receptions, they're solid. So I'm going to give them an 8 right now, just because based on what Lamar is just crazy. Because if it breaks down, he runs away. There's a touchdown. It's just so hard to catch him.
Yeah,
But
I'm giving them. I want to give them a 6.5. I'll respect Lamar's MVP and give them a 7. But actually, no, I'm going to go 6.5. I think the Steelers. I think exactly what's said in the live chat. Like Steelers have got him figured out. That's why I think you even keep Devin Bush. I think Devin Bush has figured him out, which is a weird thing to say. They got nothing if this doesn't work.
If Lamar can't run these games at all, like to get away, who's going to pass to? It's be very hard.
But what I would say, which is a little bit concerning, is they did it very odd. Like everyone talks about their draft. Now they had multiple 3rd and 4th round picks going into the draft, but they drafted 2 tight ends in Otten
really?
and yeah, they drafted 2. I just want to pull up. I want to get the names exactly right. So I know they drafted Otten, and they got him later than what they thought they were going to get him.
They got Charlie,
and they got Charlie Kolar, right? Now, no, maybe they didn't. No, sorry, they didn't get Otten. He went to another team. They got Isaiah Likely and Colbert. Now, Isaiah Likely was meant to. Most people thought he'd be taken end of the second, somewhere to mid-3rd, right? They picked Kolar instead, who I think is probably a bit better blocking going into the league at the 128th pick. And then they doubled down on the 139th pick and picked Isaiah Likely. And I think that is going to turn out to be a really big win for them. So if they
don't want to use the receivers at all. They're just going to go with.
But you think they're going to be able to basically just line up with tight ends and offensive linemen, and are they blocking or are 2 of them going to go down? Because Isaiah Likely as well, if he can prove that he can block, guy like a Ben Mason or a Patrick Ricard in there as well, they're going to be brutal. And this is the thing. I hope the Steelers have actually figured this out and we do get bounced back from Miles Jack and Devin Bush. If we do, I think we can shut this thing down completely. If we don't, we might have a problem. It also is really helpful to have Kazee in now, where we can bring Terrell Edmonds into the box. But the thing for me is, and someone alluded into the live chat earlier, there's a disconnect here between Lamar and the Ravens, right? And Lamar's his own agent, and I don't know what the hell is going on in his head. And push comes to shove, if you want to do you want to throw the football and you get into a shootout, I don't think he can do it in this league. So I think it's a really interesting situation with their offense.
Well, it'd be cool to see, because if you can line up, I think the formation allows it. You can line up 3 tight ends, can't you?
Correct.
If you have a 1-back set, in certain formations, you can do that. So if that's to do with running the football, or Lamar, passing to those 3 tight ends and having a 1 receiver, that's like old school kind of football, isn't it? Hand in the dirt and run down. So that would be, and they often use their fullback and 2-back sets as well. So maybe that's what they're looking towards, and not going the 5 wide or 4 wide, because they got rid of Hollywood Brown went, didn't he? So and who's he going to pass to? So that's intriguing. I don't really know. It's a different way to watch football with the Ravens.
It's going to be some weird things. All right, how about them on the defensive side of things? Now, obviously, they got guys like your Travis Joneses, and they've got Marlon Humphreys and Marcus Peters and Michael Pierce and all these sorts of players. What do you think about this defense?
I have to give them straight away a 7. Right, I do want to see what they can do this year. It's not the old defense of past, but it's always that Raven mentality. A bit like the Steelers, or we're going through some of the new guys, but still that physicality. So I'll give them a 7, because I still find it a bit funny how they did lose 6 games in a row. So how do you get over that milestone? But Calais Campbell, he's getting up in age, right? He's up there defensive end, so he's a big unit though. Derek Wolfe, he's from Denver a few years ago. So, and Queen, the linebacker, they're pretty fast. Look, man, the AFC North is crazy. We're crazy going to be physical. So it will be if the offense can't move the ball, if they go 3 and outs, that will be different. if they can move the ball by running those tight ends and those formations where the running game gets flowing, then it's different. If you keep that Ravens defense, because they're going to play, if they can play within front like by 10 points, 13 points, then the defense can control and it'll be hard to come back.
Yeah, I think I'm giving them a 8.5. But this is a team that could be like 9.5, 10. I mean, the way that they've drafted, I mean, I hate falling into that because it's potential, it's on paper, but there's just some of the additions that they've made. You talk about a guy like a Patrick Queen. They've got who's the guy out of Penn State? Changed his name last year.
Change his name? You can do that?
Yeah, what was his Ode Wafe or whatever it is? What
was his name before?
Man, you got me. I haven't had my morning coffee. We jumped on the show too early. Anyway, the point being is they've got some good guys there that I think can develop. How about the draft side of things? How do you think they?
Well, this is something we looked into before because we looked into that. Kyle Hamilton at safety, they got him at number 1. That is along with that secondary too, because Marcus Peters, those guys, they're crazy. So bringing him into the Ravens and him being a Raven like former like Ed Reed. I'm not saying he will be Ed Reed, but that mentality, that'll be fun to watch. Who's the other bloke? The other big name that came up.
No, I'm not falling into that trap. That's not a good word.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Tyler Linderbaum.
Travis Linderbaum, Jones. Right? Yeah, he signed as their center. So all these big names that kind of went to them. Daniel Falele, that's the big dude at 6'6", the Australian.
Daniel Falele.
It's like they just got like the biggest dudes or the most big names, and we'll see what can happen because the Ravens. I would say John Harbaugh was a bit angry for what he came fourth in the division, and now also with this stuff too because they play the easier teams that came in their fourth. So. Yeah, I thought they had a pretty good draft overall.
It's interesting. I can't find Falele on any of the. They've not listed him. He must be able to sign his deal. Cool. All right. Well, I gave them a 9. So you gave them an 8. Is that what you said, sir?
Yeah, I think so. I think 8. 8 will do.
Yeah. All right. How about the difference makers and the stars?
Stars, of course, are going to be Lamar Jackson. But then what do they do with the tight ends? Like you said, with the 3 tight end sets, are they going to be stars or is the whole game plan going to be a star? You know what I'm saying? So overall, I think it really depends because this whole team is built around Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
Then once he went down, they lost all the games, like I said. And so this has to be probably like an 8. I think an 8 overall.
I'm going to give them a 7.
Right.
Because I don't believe in Lamar. I believe in some of the other players. I really would like to give them a 6, but I'll respect what's there on paper.
We should give them a 1.
Because they always have these names. Everyone goes, "Oh, look who the Ravens have." Where's the Super Bowl? Where's the Super Bowl to prove it? Where are the wins? Where are the, AFC North title? Like it just never seems to work. And like the other thing about all this size, right? We just talked for how long? 5 minutes about helmets. You can have the biggest players, right? But if you guys are smacking the hell out of each other like at training, and you do need to do that to be battle hardened, I'm all for that. But like you're constantly doing everything with all these massively big and strong guys. That takes its toll with fatigue. Like I would love to know how they manage it. And it clearly does because of the injuries that they have. So like I give them a 7. I probably more want to give them a 6. So Mark, I can tell you right now that gives you an overall score of 38 for the Ravens.
Right.
And for me, I've got 14, 6, 23, 29 and a half, 30. I've got a 38. So we both have the same score.
But it makes sense though. Like with all the four teams we talked about, and everyone's counting out the Steelers, but we have them all around the same level, except the Browns, because the Browns are going through a really weird situation. However you look at it.
But the interesting thing when you look at this statistically, so you and I had the Steelers at 40 and 41, right? Then we had the Browns at 40. Can't count the Browns out. Then we had the Bengals at 41 and 41 and a half. And then we've now done the Ravens at 38 each, right?
Right.
And so, but interestingly, we're further away from thinking the Steelers are at the Ravens level, and you and I are much closer statistically to seeing that we're at the Bengals level. And I think what's interesting about that too, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this. The Bengals are a much younger team, whereas we've got players that are proven performers year in, year out. And so, this is what I always find about odds when you're betting and you think about an experienced coach like a Mike Tomlin. You sort of sit there, even if we don't win the division, it's like we should make the playoffs. Like on paper, we have the proven performance, and that's what you want to back. Don't back assumptions of what could happen. Back what the evidence and the data that you've seen earlier that actually leads you to the.
I'll put it to you this way.
All probability suggests you're going to be able to back that up again.
Put it to you this way. I reckon the Bengals are still, young and angry and really want to go after it, and so that they have a good high chance to go there. I think the Ravens, their coach, like you said, makes them run into brick walls, and they're almost like that, this machine, and just, I don't know. It just seems like they're always in it because they are coached quite well, and they're coached to, just go and hit someone as hard as you can and play the Raven way, and they are a physical team. The Browns are going through a funny situation. However you see it, it's weird. It's football side. No one's talking about football. They can come out and surprise, but I don't see that. And the Steelers are the underdog, but we do have those veteran guys. So it will be interesting. Now, I would hate to see the Steelers lose to the Bengals and the Ravens, because then I'd be like, well, then we're worse, aren't we? We're the worst. We're the third team out of those three. But the Ravens won't go away. They won't go away, but nor will the Steelers. The Steelers won't go away either. So, but a lot of people are counting out the Steelers this year like they're nothing. But we play our way, and that is to go and win games. And Coach Tomlin will do that this year.
Yeah, I think it's it. And it's this, the thing that the Steelers have going for them is continuity and getting down to business. Now, that might be an odd thing for me to say in the offseason that's had the biggest upheaval with no franchise, like with the franchise quarterback leaving.
But it feels
Kevin
better,
Colbert
right?
leaving, and some of the people on defense leaving, like, Keith Butler and that. But it does feel better. I do feel more pumped up about this team. I do feel rejuvenated. But it's not rejuvenated to the point of what the Bengals have experienced. Right?
No, not at all.
But we've done it as you said, Mark, we've done it in the Steeler way. And that was the point that we wanted to go through in this show. I mean, it's a big deal to go through the AFC North in a way like this through the show. But Mark and I, have been thinking about a lot of these things for a while, and we've been talking, to each other about where this constant status of where the Steelers sit in the AFC North. And, no matter what the doubters say, and obviously if you're listening to BehindTheSteelCurtain.com or the Behind the Steel Curtain family podcast, your nonstop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers, you are a diehard Steeler fan. But, we all have to have a sense, a level of sensibility about us. But when you stack things up sensibly, it does make sense that the Steelers are going to be up there, and the Bengals are going to have a tough job beating the Steelers and taking the AFC North.
I would be shocked if they just got beat by 30. Like, I really would. I'd be like puzzled how it even happens. If they lose the Bengals by 30 or whatever, or they do submit to the fear narrative of like, we are the worst team, because they did. This offseason has felt rejuvenated. Like you said, we have gotten better. We have. It's just a reality situation. Najee is out there looking at his iPad like he wants to go out and win. And the team is so relaxed. Like not relaxed, but more confident. Muth and Gentry mucking around. Cameron Hayward's mucking around. Minka's get mucking around.
You know what? They look like they're enjoying football.
Exactly.
And I'm not
100%.
sure. I might be controversial. I'm not sure they've enjoyed it the last few years.
They do. That is
you can't tell me 2019 was an enjoyable year. Like with defense having to overplay because of Duck and Mason, and you had the Browns incident, and then in 2020, yes, you had everyone, hyping into Ben bouncing back, but there was still some issues there in terms of it just bottomed out at the end, and you could see that train coming to a halt, as the season went on, and then last year was like. They're all playing for Ben, but that takes an emotional toll, right? We've kind of wiped all that the whiteboard clear kind of thing for the last 3 years. And as you say it, Mark, it's like, injection of fresh talent, rejuvenation. And you're right. It feels good. It feels fun.
Same. And even with Coach Tomlin as well, with the helmet on his head and then relax. But he has like this new team and this new, not really an overall new team. Like you said, the Bengals struggled for so many years to get their team. But we had the Steelers now with TJ and Cameron and those veteran leaders. And Minka. Think about Minka on the side. With an all-pro safety. this team will be something this year. Just depends if they show up. And I think if they are relaxed, they're confident, they're ready to go this year. And that is a big deal for Big Ben leaving and just moving on from that. And even of also a new general manager. Like, it's just so exciting this season. I think we can go out there. And everyone's saying we can't win.
Well, we can. And here we go. So that wraps up this week's Steelers Touch Down Under. I'm Matty Peverell, joined as always by my co-host, Marky Davison.
Go Steelers.